Hello and welcome to the Business Growth Show, where we talk about all components of business and how to utilize them for exponential growth. My name is Athin Cassiotis. I'm a business growth expert who helps business owners grow and scale to create wealth and freedom. Today, I have an awesome guest. His name is Kody Thompson, and Kody is a dynamic entrepreneur and visionary leader with a track record for success. And he's renowned for his achievements as the founder of Lightning Sites, a web development company that built from a $250 startup into a multi-million-dollar enterprise, generating in excess of $5 million profit across 8 years. And over that time, Lightning Sites was able to build over 1,500 websites, servicing over 800 clients monthly and generating in excess of 500,000 leads for his clients. And in 2023, Lightning Sites was acquired by a US technology company, Sites at Scale. After successfully building his own remote teams to grow and exit Lightning Sites, he launched the business WrkPod in 2021 with co-founder Dale Beaumont. And WrkPod specializes in helping companies build teams in the Philippines, offering comprehensive services that include talent recruitment, state-of-the-art co-working spaces, and extensive training and support for both clients and Filipino talent. And in 2 short years, Kody facilitated the placement of over 650 remote staff for WrkPod clients and grown, enabling them to achieve greater efficiency, reduce operational costs, and strengthen their enterprises. Welcome, Kody Thompson, and thank you for being on my show.
Thanks, mate. I really appreciate the opportunity.
You're welcome, mate. I'm sure it's going to be a great podcast show for everyone watching and listening today. So you're a very successful entrepreneur. So for those people who don't know who you are, please introduce yourself by telling us more about you and your journey.
Yeah, so as you said, I started with a web development company. In fact, I actually started as a freelance graphic designer. I was working as a youth pastor, and I took on a volunteer position that couldn't pay me. And so I started freelancing as a graphic designer to make money. So that's how everything started for me. I kind of fell into business, and that developed into a web development company. I kept hiring more talent. I turned it into a subscription service and built it up over 8 years to a business that was doing about $3 million a year in revenue. And then, earlier this year, I had a company from the US take over the day-to-day operations of Lightning Sites so that I can exit and focus more of my attention on WrkPod, my new enterprise. So yeah, it's a quick nutshell about my background.
Yeah, awesome, mate. I love it. And it's awesome to hear, the journey of how it goes and how you changed that business model and then, built it up and got you to where you are today into different industries and that. And I know with WrkPod, you're focusing a lot on hiring remote staff. So I'd love to delve deeper into that today for everybody, because I'm sure everybody is thinking of it or should be thinking of it at the same time. So, obviously with Australia as well, working with the Philippines, it can be other countries too, of course, but especially with us, with the time zone is very good, being only 2 or 3 hours difference, as well as people in the Philippines, being great at what they do. Initially, what is the benefits, I guess, of hiring remote staff?
Well, I mean, the obvious benefit is the cost savings that comes with hiring staff in places like the Philippines. It's about a sixth of the price comparatively to hiring staff here in Australia. And the skill set and education levels over there are really great. So you can find, the same level of talent from an education perspective at a sixth of the price. So obviously that's a huge benefit. But it's also a big benefit to your local team here in Australia. Like, a lot of people tend to think that when you hire staff in the Philippines, you're taking jobs away from local talent. But my experience is the exact opposite. When you hire overseas talent to take on the tasks in your business that you couldn't afford to pay an Australian to do, say, for example, building an email outreach campaign or something like that, where hiring someone for $30 an hour to complete the tasks just wouldn't be viable for your business. You can do those types of activities in the Philippines, and what it does is it provides opportunity for your Australian or your local staff to elevate and take on more important roles in your business. So from a scale perspective, it saves you costs, allows you to scale your business faster, to release your local talent to focus on things that are going to help your business to go to the next level.
Yeah, awesome, man. Love it. And completely agree with so many benefits, and being able to get potentially up to 6 people for one, right? And then be able to grow the business easier than doing it. But, there is a good reason for having some local staff at the same time, but definitely helps, on the scale side. So let's talk about some challenges now, I think, right? Because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know about it, or maybe they've had experiences in the past and it hasn't gone that well. So we want to maybe talk about some of the challenges of hiring remote staff and how we can maybe address these to not make them happen, going forward.
Yeah. Look, I mean, it starts with where you're trying to find the talent. When I first started hiring staff in the Philippines, I used websites like Upwork, freelancer.com, those types of websites to find Filipino staff. But what I tended to find was the talent was really focused on freelancing. They're not there looking for a career. They're there to get a great hourly rate, and often they're working for multiple clients at the same time. And so that's one of the big challenges, I guess, is if you go online and utilize those sites, you tend to waste a lot of time trying to find the right talent. You might get lucky and find someone great, but a lot of the time you waste hours, even hundreds of hours going through candidates, testing them, working with them for a bit, only to find that they take off and work for somebody else. So I mean, that's one of the big challenges, is just finding the right talent, which is, a big part of what WrkPod helps with. And then after that, it's managing the talent. If they're working from home, particularly in the Philippines, they tend to have smaller homes. They tend to have more people living in their homes. They tend to have lower quality internet connection at their homes. They tend to have lower infrastructure with regards to power, interruptions and things like that. So, having them work from home is another challenge that, essentially is why we created WrkPod. We help people find the talent, find talent that is looking to build a long-term career. And then we provide the infrastructure with them working from our serviced office space with quality internet, with proper supervision and great internet power, etc., to make sure that they can be productive for our clients.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Love that. Really, really powerful there. And I guess, so let's say we're looking at getting someone to hire them. Like, where should we be starting? The position description obviously comes to mind there.
Yeah.
And being clear on, where to start so we can get the right person as well.
Yeah, I mean, it comes with understanding where you want to take your business. And for most entrepreneurs, if it's their first time hiring remote staff, typically I would encourage them to just keep a list, like a task audit, basically, of where they're spending all their time. So you could use, even, for example, a software tool. We have a software tool called Time Doctor, which we give to all of our clients when they work with WrkPod. But I found a great exercise for myself was tracking my own time and figuring out where in my company was I actually spending the most amount of time. And you'd be surprised as a business owner how much time you spend on tasks that are not really driving your business forward. And so if you do a bit of a task audit, then you could figure out which tasks you could outsource to someone overseas to free you up to spend more time on your business. In fact, you could go to our website. We have a checklist there. If you go to WrkPod.com, there's a checklist, 150 things you can outsource to a virtual staff member. It'd be worth going through that checklist and just seeing which areas are you currently spending time doing yourself that would be better off handed to someone who costs the business a lot less than your time.
Yeah, awesome, man. Love that. Working out those lower tasks so we can, focus more on those like revenue generating tasks and things that are going to, move the business forward in what we're doing. So love
Exactly.
So let's talk about the interviewing side now, because I think this is important as well. Like, we could, do this right, set it up correctly, know the type of, task that we want to, hand off to somebody. Then we're getting some talent in, right? Whether it's through WrkPod or we've got some people in front of us that we want to obviously pick the right candidate. That's there. So what are some tips you can give to make sure we're getting the right person that's, the best fit for our business?
I would start by trying to make sure that the interviewer is comfortable. Like, one of the things that I think stops great talent from being discovered is sometimes they're very, very nervous in the interview. And sometimes those nerves are not a reflection of the quality of the candidate, but sometimes it's just they really want this job, or maybe they haven't developed the skills for doing job interviews yet. And it might not mean that they're the wrong talent for the role. It might just be that they're feeling very nervous. So when I start off an interview, I try to break the ice and alleviate those nerves. So I'll say something along the lines of, hey, it's great to have you here. I'll talk about maybe what's going to happen in the call today. And I'll say something along the lines of, there's no trick questions today. I just want to get to know you. I want you to get to know me. I'll say things along the lines of, it's as much about you deciding that you would like to work for me as it is me deciding that I would like to work with you. And so I kind of try to make sure that the person feels very comfortable. I ask them some personal questions from the outset. So I think that's a really important part to the interview process, is just making sure that the candidate feels relaxed and can knows that you're not trying to trick them with the questions. You're just trying to ascertain whether or not they're going to enjoy the job or not, and just trying to figure out whether it's a fit from both sides. So I've found that that's helped me to discover, what the talent really is looking for when it comes to their job. And it helps it helps if they know what they're in for before we hire them. So I just try to make sure we do that in the interview process.
Yeah, love it, mate. That's awesome. And excuse me. So when we're looking at not just the skills, I think in the interview, it's also about the attitude, right, of somebody there. And maybe I think a better way of putting it is like the values, right? Like there's maybe an alignment there to make it easier for everyone going forward, right? So there's no potential, challenges later down the line. So is there some other things that we should be asking, I guess, there? Because you don't necessarily want to ask, hey, what are your values or something like that, because it's like a bit too general there, to just delve into them and go, knowing how they work, going, oh, this person, you get that gut feeling maybe, or whatever it is, going, this person, more feels like the better fit for me culturally in the business too.
Yeah, I'd ask them questions like, what does the ideal workplace look like to you? So that's a great way to ask them, basically, what are your values, without asking them, like, what is important to you, or what makes a great boss, or what makes a great leader? Like, those types of questions allow you to kind of like get a sense of like where they place value. When you're not at work, what do you like to do with your spare time? Or if your friends were to describe your personality, how do you think they would describe you? So questions like that are like disarmed versions of like, tell me, what are your personal values? You can do it with those types of questions.
Yeah, great tips there. Love that on that side with, understanding more about what they're about. So now we've hired them now, let's say, we've picked the right person. And I think the next crucial part is the onboarding, right? Here is making sure that we set them up for success, right, from the start, so that and we hit the ground running. So what are some tips or some strategies do you think to make that smooth, effective in the onboarding, so that they're up to speed as quickly as possible and ingrained in the business?
I think we need to think about them as if they were a staff member starting with us, here locally. Sometimes people tend to, I guess, treat the remote talent differently than they would treat the local talent. And then they wonder why the onboarding, the staff member doesn't perform quickly. So things like making sure that their workstation is set up before they arrive. That's something that if you're working with WrkPod, we help facilitate that. But making sure their computer's set up, making sure that they have access to the email address, making sure they have access to your task management system or the tools that you're going to be requiring them to use, making sure that you've preloaded the training and the things that you want them to be doing on the first week, that you have a plan and a strategy to spend time with them. In fact, I would say onboarding actually starts from the moment they accept the offer letter. That's probably another big mistake. Sometimes people will be, they'll sign the offer that they're going to start in 3 weeks, and they'll hear nothing from the boss until the day before they're about to start. But you can imagine what's going through the brain of a candidate who's accepted a job. Maybe they quit their past job and they've taken a new job with you, and then they hear nothing for 3 weeks before they start. It's scary for the candidate. And so onboarding actually starts from the moment that they sign the contract. You could start sending them videos, sending them videos about the company, sending them things that they could read, letting them know how excited you are to have them start, just making sure that you're touching base with them before they start. And then you just want to have everything prepared. So have, like I said, the workstation, the emails, and all the access stuff should be prepared before their first day.
Yeah, love it, mate. Really, really important to hit the ground running I remember, someone that I know, I was telling them about these types of things, and they did it on the fly, and they were like, "Oh, it took them like weeks to get it organized." I'm like, "Yeah, you just started on the wrong foot, and starting on the right foot, saves a lot of time and sets it up for success." I love that
Exactly.
stuff there. So let's talk about communication now, because I think it's different, right? Having someone next to you in a room or something in an office compared to, remotely, just generally on how you work. So this could be, a potential concern, right, for people, like how are we communicating and everything like that. So what are your tips on how we can make sure that, we're communicating, I guess, well within the business to, get those outcomes, that we're wanting over time?
I think there's a number of strategies, but particularly with remote staff would be having like a clear tech stack for how you communicate. Like, do you communicate using Slack? Are you using Google Chat? Are you ringing them on the phone? When do you use emails and when do you use chat? Like having just a clear process of how people should communicate. It's more important for remote teams because they can't just tap you on the shoulder and ask you a question. So there needs to be clarity around, how they actually get in contact with you and how you would like to communicate with them. So we have documentation on that in our company. When we onboard someone, we show them through the tech stack and what we use the different tools for, how we expect them to communicate, particularly if they're like, for example, my EA. I have very specific documentation about if I ask her to complete a task, how I want her to deal with that, like how she puts it in the task management system, how I want her to give me an actual time that she'll get the task done, rather than saying, I'll get to this soon, telling me I'll get this done by Tuesday at 5 or something like that. So having specifics around how you want communication to happen and the tech stack behind that is really important. And then I would say just having a great rhythm for your team is important as well. So what I mean by rhythm is, like, do you have regular meeting rhythms of how you do things, or are you just doing stuff on the fly? Like, oh, we better have a staff meeting next week because I've got these things to deal with. Or do you have, for example, in our business, we have daily huddles every morning for 15 minutes. We have stand-up meetings where we kind of align with our team. And then we have weekly sync meetings with our departments. And then we have what we call level 10 meeting, with like a senior management meeting once a week. And then we have team building days once every quarter. So we have these rhythms in place and they don't change. If I can't be there for a meeting, then one of my team runs it. But those things create specific lines of communication, which help you, particularly when your organization gets larger. It helps you to make sure that your staff know that there's an avenue for them to communicate ideas or challenges and things like that.
Yeah, awesome. And all of that, what you're saying, basically helps to build the culture as well, right? Within the business.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, especially those, even the team building, right? Like some people might have some meetings and stuff, but having those additional things where you can get people together, especially when you're not in person necessarily. Massive as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, love it, mate. So you touched on it a little bit, but let's go a little bit deeper on about tools, because I think this is really important. You touched on project manager system and maybe, how you communicate with people. What do you think is really important generally with tools or overall for making sure that we, everyone knows what they're doing and they've got, I guess, the minimum or the ideal set there, so that people that are thinking about it that might not think, hey, I didn't know I could, get this tool that could help me with this particular part of managing, and leading remote staff. So what do you think is the real key tools that everyone should be having with remote staff in their business?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a communication chat type tool would be the first one, so that you can talk to each other. So personally, at the moment we're using Discord, which is like a chat tool where you can have different channels. You can send audio messages, you can have phone conversations. So we use Discord for our internal chat, but there's other tools like Slack. There's tools like Teamwork Chat, Google Chat, things like that. Even things like Skype, for example, if you want to go a bit old school. So those types of tools would be important, a chat tool. The second one would be a task management tool. When you ask someone to do something, or or if there's recurring tasks in your business, they shouldn't be things that live in people's brain. They need to have deadlines. They need to have clear accountability, who's accountable for those tasks. And so you need to have a task management tool. So there's a communication tool, there's a task management tool. Then you need to have a finance tool if you don't have something to track your finances effectively. So you need that in your tech stack. So something like Xero or MyOb would be an example. Then the fourth tool would be you need somewhere to store your systems. Like you have to have somewhere where your staff can go to understand the process for doing things well in your business. So a task management, like an intranet tool, you might use something like System Hub, or you might use Teamwork Spaces, or you might use, I use a tool called Outline, which you can see at getoutline.com. Those types of tools are important. So they're probably like four of the major software tools. There's other tools, depending on your business. Like I also have a payment processing tool. I use Stripe to manage all the billing for our clients. So there's other tech tools that are required in different circumstances, but they would be the basics, would be a communication, task, finance, and then some sort of systems hub tool to keep all your processes in one place.
Yeah, nice. Love it, mate. Let's talk about the tracking and the measuring, I guess, like the performance of people, because some people might be like, just generally, if they're used to having people in the office going, are they really working the whole time? Or, how do we measure that, how effective they are, right? At doing certain tasks, whether it's KPIs or whatever like that. So what do you want to share in terms of, whether it's tools or other processes people can do to make sure that, they're doing that too?
Well, it starts with people knowing what their role is. Like in anything, like if in sport, for example, if you are on a basketball team and you don't understand what your role is, like what does the team need you to do to ensure that we win basketball games? It's the same in business. Like what is your role to help our company win? People need to know in a deep way what that looks like for them. What does success look like for them? And a lot of times people are performing poorly because that is not clear. The business owner has not made it clear, what does winning look like? Everybody wants to win, is my opinion. Like if they're working in your organization and they're a good human being, then they want to win. They don't want to be unsuccessful at their job. And so if they're not performing well, the first thing I would look at is like, do they understand what winning looks like? And that starts with the job description. Like what is their job, and what constitutes that job winning? And so you could call that KPIs, like what are the key performance indicators of somebody winning at this role? So that's where I would start, job description and then KPIs. But it boils down to, I don't usually use the language KPIs when I'm talking to my staff. It'll just be like, what does winning look like? This is what it looks like to win. Because to me, that's a more engaging way to talk about my expectations with staff.
Yeah, I love that. Different language change. What does winning look like? And coming from a sport background myself, I can definitely I think we all want to win at something, right? Whatever that is. So yeah, love it, mate. That's awesome. And let's just, I guess, manage expectations for some people as well, because some people might be like, I can't hire someone over there because they don't know the culture or something of Australia. And they're very capable, obviously, right? In the Philippines as well. I've got, a VA in the Philippines as well. So I'm well aware of that. But just, do you want to maybe just, explain the differences there? Because there is benefits of having both, but that they can do a lot of what you think, even though they've, grown up in a different country and different culture.
Yeah. So obviously there's differences between, Filipino culture and Australian culture, which takes some time to get used to. But the Filipinos they've got a lot of US influence. There was a lot of US army bases and things like that in the Philippines during the war. And they've had they've been hugely impacted by that US influence there, and Hollywood, the influence of movies and things like that. And so they are very exposed to that type of Western influence. And so that does kind of make it easier to bridge the gap, as opposed to, say, hiring in countries like, say, India or Vietnam, where the culture is, significantly distanced from the Australian culture. So there is some things that need to be like worked through when you first start hiring staff. But it's not insurmountable, and that's part of like what we do. Even on our website, if you go to our website, there's an FAQ section. There's about 60 videos where we answer the most common questions about working with staff in the Philippines. And I guess what I've learned over 10 years of building teams, and we currently have 150 staff of our own there, as well as the staff that we've placed for other companies. So we've, I guess, learned a thing or two about, what it takes to actually be successful in building those teams. So you just need someone to learn from, I guess, and be ready to put in the work. Don't expect somebody to come who is, going to be the savior of your company. Like, particularly if people are just starting out, sometimes they hire a VA and they'll come to me and they'll say, I want them to be able to do Facebook ads, and I want them to be able to do video editing, and I want them to be an expert graphic designer, and I want them to be able to bring in $80,000 a quarter in sales. And it's like, hang on a minute, you can't even do all of those things, and you're expecting us to find someone for $6 an hour who can do all of those things? Like, it's not realistic. So I guess as long as you think about it just like you'd be hiring anybody here in Australia, they're not going to be a superstar overnight. You need to find someone who aligns with your values, who's hungry to succeed, who wants to win, and has the raw talent to pick up the skills you need for that role. And then you get to work. You train your systems. You get them to use those systems in your business. And as they pick those things up, you load them up more and more with more responsibility in your business, and you look to create long-term opportunities for them. If you do that over time, you'll build a really great company.
Yeah, love it, mate. Really powerful points there. And yeah, it's interesting. I love that you got those videos as well, because there's certain things you learn over time. It'd be great to know at the start, like, family is like their biggest value, right? In the Philippines and things like that, with how they are. So understanding, how that works in that dynamic, when you're having conversations with them, all these little things that you get that better connection, right, with them, and they'll be more loyal and everything like that, as they are naturally. Anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, awesome, man. So let's get into scaling a little bit more now, because you've done very well. You've we talked about earlier about all your accolades and how many you've grown your businesses to millions, and so many websites, over 1,000 that you've delivered and everything like that for clients, and now place so many people as well in WrkPod. So let's talk about what allowed you to get to that point, because I think a lot of people get stuck a little bit, right? They get to a certain point, maybe they get comfortable, maybe they don't want to let go, whatever it is at that point, and they're not getting to a higher level where they can, I guess, remove themselves, like you've talked about yourself with Lightning Sites, to maybe work on other things or get too stuck into it. So what do you think was something key there, whether it's a mindset thing or a process thing that you've done to allow you to get you to where you are, to that level of scale?
I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to, most of the time in my business, when it stopped growing, it was because of changes that I needed to make in the way I was leading the business. Like, leading a company of 5 staff is very different to leading a company of 150 staff, and your day-to-day work looks a lot different than it did when you were leading 5 people as opposed to leading 150. And so, for example, the way that you communicate with your team, the way that you trust people to take on certain responsibilities in the company, like there's so many changes along the way in terms of developing your ability to delegate tasks, communicating better with your team, trusting people and not taking tasks back off of people, or disempowering employees by cutting them off, and not allowing them to make mistakes. So there's so many changes that happen in who you are as a leader over time, that requires you to be brutally honest with yourself, I guess, is what it boils down to. And a lot of the time when our business isn't growing, we look for other reasons, like it's our marketing agency's fault that we're not getting leads, or it's my operations manager's fault that projects are falling off the wagon. But the reality is, if there's no leads coming in, don't blame the marketing agency. If they're not a good agency, fire them and find somebody else, but take responsibility for the issues that are happening in your organization. Because ultimately, as the business owner, everything, the buck stops with you. You're ultimately responsible for every decision that is made in the business. And the sooner that you take ownership of that, then the faster your business will grow. But it takes being brutally honest. And sometimes that's not very comfortable. Some of the, revelations that I've come to in myself over that time have been uncomfortable for me to realize, like, oh man, I didn't look after that staff member the way I thought I was, or the way I was communicating with that particular staff member, wasn't landing the way I thought it was landing, or, I didn't realize I was making that staff member feel disempowered by the way I was dealing with their tasks, or whatever it might be. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to have those revelations, but that's what it takes if you want to go to the next level as a leader.
Yeah, love it, mate. So true. Looking internally, and then how do we grow, as a person as well, or looking back in hindsight, how you can do it differently, and then changing the way we take action going forward. Love that as well. Let's talk about business models here, because I think this is a really important one that I know, like at the start of your business, when you're strategizing about how you want to move the business forward, I think the business model is so crucial, because that will determine whether it is a scalable business, because some businesses aren't necessarily that scalable. So how do you think about these businesses when you're starting something new, or maybe you've had to pivot from your original design, right? To then moving into lightning sites and everything like that, to get something that is a better business model that allows, for scale and growth to get it to where you want to be.
I mean, listening to the customers is key. When I first started, so to kind of explain my journey in a little bit more detail, when I was first freelancing as a graphic designer, I made about 110K in the first 12 months of running that business, which at the time I thought was astronomical, because I was making 30 grand a year as a youth pastor before that. And the next year I hired my first staff member, and my theory was, if I can just spend as much time designing, I was charging $80 an hour for design. So my theory was, if I just spend as much time as I can designing and less time doing other stuff, I'll make more money. So over the next 2 years, that's essentially the only major changes I made. I hired some staff in the Philippines to manage projects and things like that, so that I could spend all my time designing. So I got up to making about 500 grand a year, basically, with that model, where I had a junior designer who would just, like, if I designed a logo, they would export the files and send them to the client. And so I basically spent all my time creating, and that way I was always making $80 an hour and not like wasting time on emails. So that was like the first step. But then I realized this is not a very good business model, because the only thing I can do is increase my hourly rate to make more money. Literally, I can't work any more hours doing design. So I guess for me, it just comes over experience. Once you hit one of those ceilings, you have to be willing to reimagine your business model. And so for me at that point, I was like, okay, I'm doing everything for everyone. Like, I'm doing flyers, I'm doing posters, I'm doing logos, I'm doing chatbots, I'm doing, tech stack setup. I'm doing like whatever people need. If they'll pay me $80 an hour, I'll do it. But you can't scale that, because all those skills were locked up in me. They weren't in systems, so they couldn't be transferred to other staff. And even if I tried to systemize it, there was too many things that I was offering. Every time you offer a new product, you have, if you want it to be scalable, you've got to create systems for every single one of those products. And so I started by building a website for a CrossFit gym. And then I had a bunch of other CrossFit gyms say, hey, I saw the website you did for that gym. Could you build me a website? And then I quoted them, and they said, oh, we don't have the money for that. Could we just have the website? Could we just use the same website template that you did for that other gym? And so that's where I had this brainwave. Why don't I, instead of building a website once and selling it once, why don't I build one template and sell it, hundreds of times? And rather than getting them to pay a large upfront fee, why don't I charge them a subscription? So this was about, 7 years ago. And at the time, I don't think there was any other custom web agencies, at least that I knew of, selling websites on a subscription. And it was scary to go from selling websites for, $15K each to selling them for $500 setups. But that's what I did for gyms. But in the next 12 months, I sold like 200 of those websites to gyms. And I, within the space of 18 months, 2 years, I was making more money on a recurring revenue model per year than I was, on the initial setups. I went from $500,000 the previous financial year, we did just under $1 million the next year, just by switching the business model from selling websites for an upfront fee and then selling them on a subscription.
Yeah, love it, mate. Great example of changing that business model to something that is more scalable and productized. And this can be done for a service, right? As well as a product here on, focusing on one thing and then building it out, productizing the service or building those systems behind it. So love it. Great example there of, making something that's scalable. And powerful episode today, mate, that you've shared heaps of knowledge. And as we're wrapping up here today, what one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
Just love your people. I think a great company, in my opinion, is just a group of people that are aligned around a common goal and motivated. And so if you want to build a great company, you can't do it alone. You need to build a team. And then if you're looking to build a team overseas, then come and see us at WrkPod.
Yeah, awesome. Definitely. Can't do it all yourself. You might be able to do it at the start, but after that, you definitely need other people to help to grow the business and get out of and doing more of what you enjoy, right? Instead of doing a bit of everything in the business. So I love it, mate. It's been a powerful episode today. We connected through our networks. We learned about your awesome journey from start founding Design Fox to Lightning Sites to WrkPod, and awesome guy and very knowledgeable and shared a lot of great value here today. I'm sure you continue to help companies achieve greater efficiency, reduce operational costs, and strengthen their enterprises. Very grateful, reconnected, and look forward to working with you. So, Kody, how can people find you, get in contact with you?
Our website would be the best way, just WrkPod.com, WRKPOD.com. You can find me on LinkedIn as well, Kody Thompson, spelled Kody, and you'll find me online, and I'd be happy to connect.
Awesome. Definitely check out Kody there with WrkPod.com and online on socials. If you want to take your business to that next level, especially with the remote teams. And it's been a pleasure interviewing you, mate. And thank you for being on my show.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening to this show where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Athin Cassiotis, or visit my website, athincassiotis.com. If you want to grow and scale your business, you can reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. I completely agree with you, or do I? The only way you know is if you tune in next time. So until next time, remember that our business grows when we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So remember to design your growth and results.